Banned from Canada and branded a threat to national security, George Galloway says he'll fight a shameful decision. Good evening. It's an idiotic ban, says the Respect MP for Bethnal Green and Bow. He's been called many things over the years, but rarely a threat to national security. Yet, on those grounds, because they say he supports Hamas and Hezbollah, the Canadian government refused him a visa and branded him an infandus street corner Cromwell. Tonight, find out what that means as George Galloway debates the Canadian Jewish group who campaigned to have him banned. Also tonight, George Galloway was due to give a speech to Toronto's Stop the War coalition later this month, but after an open letter of protest from Canada's Jewish Defence League, he's been declared inadmissible under the country's Immigration Act. They say he supports terrorists. He says he supports the democratically elected Hamas government of Palestine. In a moment, Mr. Galloway confronts the man who wanted him banned, but first, here's Sue Turton.
Hamas supporter, anti-war campaigner, Big Brother clown and, as of today, infandus street corner Cromwell. The flowery description given to the honourable member for Bethnal Green and Bow by Canada's Immigration Department. Its spokesman made it very clear today that Mr. Galloway was not welcome there. In case you were wondering, infandus means too odious for words. On the phone this evening, he told me why the MP was banned from entering Canada's borders.
Mr. Galloway is on the record bragging about providing financial support to Hamas, an organization which is a banned terrorist organization in Canada. It's actually quite odious, and I think it's entirely appropriate for our security agencies to say that if they have advance notice that Mr. Galloway is going to come to Canada to pee on our carpet, that we should deny him entry to the home.
Just last week, Mr. Galloway was in Gaza, handing over money and vehicles to Hamas officials. He told them,
"We are giving you now 100 vehicles and all of their contents, and we make no apology for what I'm about to say. We are giving them to the elected government of Palestine."
Canada considers Hamas a terrorist organisation, not a legitimate elected government. The MP was going to Canada later this month to address a public forum called Resisting War from Gaza to Kandahar. Canada has 2,700 troops in Kandahar. 112 Canadians have died there since 2002. The Canadian mission in Afghanistan is highly contentious back home, with huge political and public support for a complete withdrawal. But the Canadian Border Security Agency has a whole catalogue of reasons why they won't let Mr. Galloway in.
Our border security officials have examined his record, have examined his public statements, have examined the intelligence they have, and they've determined that on the whole, he falls afoul of numerous criteria in our immigration laws.
What sort of criteria are they?
They involve everything from providing material support to terrorist groups, instigating the armed overthrow of foreign governments, engaging in subversion against democratic governments. All of these criteria are spelled out.
And are you saying that he has instigated the overthrow of a foreign government?
I'm not saying anything of that kind. It's our border security agencies.
I have never seen a barrel of oil, owned one, bought one.
He had no such problems getting into the States, but he was there to defend himself in Congress against charges that he profited from the Iraq Oil for Food program.
Sir, I salute your courage, your strength, your indefatigability.
Never known to shy away from controversial figures, Mr. Galloway has said he wants to challenge those who deem Hamas terrorists, but he's not going to get the opportunity in Canada.
Well, George Galloway is here, and Mayor Weinstein, director of the Jewish Defence League in Canada, joins us from Toronto. Mr. Weinstein, you don't really think this man's a threat to national security, do you?
Excuse me?
Do you really think he's a threat to national security?
Absolutely.
Why?
He is a threat to national security of Canada. The reason why is because a couple of reasons. His unyielding support for the Hamas and the Hezbollah, He is a proxy agent of these organizations. On his very website, he wrote an article where he says, "I glorify Hezbollah and I glorify the leader of Hezbollah, Nasrallah." Also, just a short while ago, he gave money to the head of the Hamas organization in Gaza. And he has given speeches encouraging the building of tunnels and the bombings, and any man who supports Hamas the way he does and Hezbollah the way he does is in favor of educating children to become suicide bombers. He's a danger to this country.
Let me just introduce you to George Galloway. What would you say?
Well, when they gazetted this decision in The Sun this morning, which tells you a lot about the kind of government they have in Canada, they said it was about Afghanistan. So I don't know what the Jewish Defence League has to do with that, although I'm happy to debate Palestine and Lebanon with him. Tony Blair met with Hezbollah just yesterday. The British government has just announced that it's resuming talks with Hezbollah. And the reason is obvious, as we found in Northern Ireland. You can't pick and choose who other people have to represent them. And both Hamas and Hezbollah have the benefit, unlike your guest in Canada, of being a democratically elected political force. Now, I think the reference to Hamas is about the aid convoy that we took to Palestine. Hundreds of British people, all British citizens, in more than 100 British vehicles, delivering aid to starving people who don't have the means of staying alive otherwise because of the siege. The people to whom we gave the aid were the elected representatives of the Palestinian people. As one democratic politician, I handed the keys to these vehicles to another democratically elected
politician. But lots of governments around the world say they're terrorists. I mean, well, this our government.
They say it today, but they won't say it tomorrow, as you know very well. If we speak to Hezbollah yesterday, we'll be speaking to Hamas tomorrow.
Mr. Weinstein.
Hamas and Hezbollah is listed by the Canadian government as terrorist organizations. As far as democracy goes, it's how democracy is subverted. You could say Adolf Hitler was democratically elected in Germany by the German people.
But what's wrong with free speech is the point. Before we get into...
I'm sorry, but I have to finish my point. And 6 million Jews were murdered then by the Nazis. The point is that Hamas says that in their charter that it is their goal to destroy Israel and to kill Jews where they are. That's in their charter.
But what is wrong with free speech? What is wrong with...
We should support Hamas. This is not an issue of free speech. It's under the criminal code that you cannot give financial support and you cannot support Hamas and Hezbollah. It's a criminal offense in Canada. And therefore, he's barred from Canada.
I'm a 5 times elected British Member of Parliament. I speak in Canada every year in all the major cities. I've done and said nothing in the last 12 months since I was in Canada that would warrant this decision. And they'll have to defend it in court because the organisers of the tour, the public that did want to hear me, are going for a judicial review of this decision.
But do you think this is really about Afghanistan?
I think it's really
the
about
popularity of Canadian troops there?
I think it's really about the upcoming Canadian elections in which the neocon pro-Bush government of Canada is about to be gutted, just like the US Republicans were.
Mr. Weinstein?
Well, listen, we are extremely determined to uncover any proxy agents of Hamas and Hezbollah, and we've been successful right now in regards to Mr. Galloway.
Well, you don't have to uncover me. I'm an open
organizations. Book. We will be looking into these organizations in Canada that have invited him. Their links to terror groups as well. That's the mandate.
That's a very serious threat. I was actually to speak in the one of the major churches in Toronto, so there's just a warning there that they're going to be looked into. This is the kind of government, for the moment, that Canada has. The good news is the election's coming up soon, and they're going to be swept away, just like the Bush government that they were the terrible twin of.
We want to make sure that the Hamas organization teaches will not reach children in Canada. And we're going to do our utmost to see to it that proxies of radical Iran are kept away from Canada.
Okay, well, are you going to go? Are you going to try and get into Canada?
I'll be there on the border, and if I can't cross the border, then I'll address those who want to hear me in Canada by other means. There are plenty of other means. We're not at the mercy of your friend in Toronto.
And if he uses those other means, if he uses those other means, we will see to it that the Canadian government will be monitoring every individual and organization that will have anything to do with it. Again, no funding from Canada.
Sounds like it's going to be a battle of the loud hailens.
These are very venal and brute threats which are being made by your guest against Christian groups and other peace groups in Canada. And that tells you all you need to know really about them. My views on Afghanistan are that I want to save Canadian and British and American and other NATO troops from needless and pointless deaths. I want to bring them home. Whether you agree with me on that or not, surely I have the right to speak about it, and a debate is what's required. And you can't get debate by excluding people.
On that note,
this is not a freedom of speech issue.
I'm afraid
freedom of speech issue.
I'm afraid on that we have to leave it there.
And he's
Mr. Weinstein, thank you very much indeed for joining us. George Galloway, thank you.